Is the Mariners' upcoming series against the dreadful White Sox a must-sweep? And how much could the likes of Brent Rooker and h-vac Paredes cost on the trade market? We'll answer that and more coming up here on Mailbag Monday. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, June 10th, 2024. This is Titan Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we're going to open up the mailbag like we do here every Monday and answer some of your Mariners questions. But before we do that, shout out to our title sponsor today, FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's LOCKEDON to get yourself started. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description, and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. All right, let's kick off Mailbag Monday here with Mariner Enjoyer, who wants to know, is taking 3 of 4 from the White Sox still a good series, or is anything but a sweep a failure? So usually when we talk about these 4-game series, we say the goal is to split the series, but I feel like an exception to that rule has to be made here for the White Sox, who are god-awful, right, Colby?
I mean, that's the Red Sox, how bad the White Sox are.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, like, look, the White Sox, they suck. Still professional athletes, and it's not like you're playing an amazing brand of baseball based on this last road trip or anything like that. So you still have to take them very seriously. You're also going to face Fetty. You're going to face Crochet. Those two guys, one of those two guys is probably going to be their all-star representative.
They also just got future Mariner Luis Robert back.
Right. Obviously they have Drew Thorpe going on Tuesday. He'll make his debut. He's a highly touted prospect. We know that typically advantage goes to the guy making his debut on that night. And then Cannon. So they have some pretty good arms going in this series. So you can't just write them off as having no talent or anything like that. So you got to be careful with them. Sure. But yeah, I think winning 3 of 4 should be the goal. It's a reasonable goal. If you can sweep them, great, awesome. But no, I don't think that there's such thing as a must sweep 4-game series unless you're 3 games back in the division lead with 4 games to go and you're playing the team that you're directly chasing.
Right.
In that case, then yeah, you have to win all 4, otherwise your season's over. But there's no such thing as a must win or must sweep 4-game series outside of that one very specific situation. So yeah, the White Sox are bad, but they're still Major League Baseball team. You haven't played well in the last week yourself. So your offense, who knows what you're going to get. You are at home, which is good. You do play significantly better at home than you do on the road. But yeah, it's way too much to say, get out here and be like, they have to sweep or they're going to sweep. Like it's a lock. And it's like,
yeah,
nah, they have to play well.
Yeah. But I think you absolutely need to win at least 3 of these games, and you need to head into that Texas series at least 40-31.
Be nice.
Next question here from Scott. Which teams in the AL do you think are bad matchups for the M's? Seems like Baltimore, KC, and maybe Minnesota fall in that category. Follow up, is there a move or strategy/approach that could help Seattle against tougher matchups?
I actually don't think Kansas City is a terrible matchup. Caveat. If you can get them out of Kansas City. Like if you're hosting them in Seattle for a series, like hypothetically the wild card series, I think they're a pretty good matchup because they don't hit the ball. They don't hit a ton of home runs. They don't walk. They don't strike out. They're very aggressive. And that is, in theory, a matchup that's very favorable to your pitching, your starting pitching. They should be able to get deep against those teams. And when you look at the splits, Kansas City's been dreadful on the road offensively. So I actually don't know if Kansas City is a terrible matchup. It just kind of depends on, they're perfectly built for their ballpark and you are perfectly built not to ever play in their ballpark. So really that's the issue with that matchup. And then the Orioles, they're a bad matchup for everybody. So like, I don't think that's that concerning of a thing that, the Mariners really don't match up well with the Orioles. Well, nobody does. But I do think that, in general, if you're looking for a style of team that's going to give Seattle issues, It's probably going to be a team that can run, steal some bags, put pressure on the defense, because we know that this is it's not exactly an elite defensive unit. They've really hammered out some issues that they had early in the year, but overall the defense is average, I think, at best. And so, it's a team that can put the ball in play and can pitch a little bit. Those are the teams that are going to give Seattle issues if they get to the postseason. But yeah, it's Minnesota, tough matchup. In general, they pitch, they hit dingers, like that's their thing. Pretty athletic too. Kansas City, I think if you get them away from KC, I think you actually have the favorable matchup at T-Mobile Park, so that one's kind of up in the air. And then Baltimore, yeah, but every team is a bad matchup. Like Baltimore's a bad matchup against everybody. But yeah, like I think they match up okay with the Yankees. I think they match up okay with Kansas City. I think they match up okay with Cleveland, actually. So I think Baltimore's probably the big one. And then Minnesota, yeah, with Lopez and Bailey Ober, they got some dudes who can throw the ball. Not to mention Duran and Jackson, the bullpen. So, yep, I think those are probably the top three. They want to improve their matchup against these teams. They have to get more talented. That's the way to do it. Like, you're built the way you're built. Could you steal a few more bags? Maybe. But you're not built to bunt the guy over to third and then just get the ground ball and drive that guy in. No, you're not going to do that because you strike out too much. That's the reality of it. You have too many strikeouts to try and play small ball consistently and do it well. You might be able to do it in isolation, like in pockets, but no, in general, you're not going to ask, Josh Rojas to bunt because he's bad at it. You're not going to ask JP Crawford to bunt because he's bad at it. Right, just let them swing the bat. That's your best shot.
I guess the question then that's on our listeners' minds off of that is, should they practice that more than, is that something that you can teach mid-season?
You built the team to play this way. You have to deploy them that way. The only way you can get them to get better at that stuff, again, is to get players who are better at it.
Right.
You're not going to teach JP Crawford to become an excellent bunter in June.
Yeah.
Just not going to happen. So you're not going to teach JP Crawford how to steal bases in June. Like, it's just not going to happen. So you have to design the team specifically. And again, you can go out and get another player who can maybe steal some bags. You can get more contact. You can add that to the lineup. And then in effect, you kind of change the strategy a little bit. But the only way you're going to change like the outlook of this club and the way they play is if you go get different players in the middle of the year, which they should do.
All right. We're going to answer more of your questions here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by SupplyHouse and FanDuel. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, that's LOCKDON, and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And you're listening to Mailbag Monday here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. You can catch the M's and the White Sox tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. Let's get back into your questions here. Jonathan wants to know, can the Mariners realistically get by with just Cal Raleigh and Mitch Garver at catcher? There seems to be little urgency in getting Sebi Zavala any sort of playing time, and the ramp up for Garver appears underway. Is this a viable way to handle the position the rest of the season? First and foremost, Sebi Zavala hasn't started a game since May 26th. He hasn't even appeared in a game since June 1st, and I'm not sure if they're necessarily ramping up Garver yet. Right, we've only seen him catch George Kirby. Now, it's possible we'll see him catch someone else in the rotation here soon, and maybe they are going to ramp him up. But so far, I don't think we've necessarily seen the ramp up on that front. The Zavala thing blows my mind. Now, you can argue that Zavala is here because they still aren't sure if Garver can handle catching duties, and they want to try and get both Garver and Raleigh in the lineup as much as possible together. So they, want to have a backup catcher on the bench in case something goes awry. But they're also not really using him in a way that can help, keep either one of these guys fresh either. I just don't really understand, like, the more you kind of get into the layers of the whole situation, I just don't really understand what they're doing with Sebi right now.
Yeah, they're screwing him is what they're doing, and in the process, they're also kind of screwing Cal Raleigh. You want Cal Raleigh to be better than he's been? Don't use him as much. Like, give him full days off. Otherwise, there's no point in carrying Sebi. Now, I think Garver caught all 10 innings yesterday. It's the first time he's caught from start to finish.
Yep.
So, this could be part of the ramp up. But Sebi, again, really, since his first 4 starts, Zavala's been totally fine at the plate. In fact, as far as backup catchers go, he's been really good behind the plate. He's managed to give you a little something back there. So, like, Zavala is not a bad backup catcher. He's just a guy that they don't use. And now he hasn't played. I don't know when his last at bat was, but I think the last time he played, it was literally just the 9th inning of the blowout game on Saturday.
Last at bat was against Cole Tucker, was the grounded to double play. Yeah.
So he hasn't seen real pitching in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And now you're like, oh, well, we don't want to use him because he can't hit. And it's like, well, yeah, he can't hit because you're not giving him the opportunity to hit. So you did this stupid thing where you traded Blake Hunt, and so you kind of sabotaged your best backup catcher depth that you have. Now you really don't have any major league guys aside from Zavala and Cal, and maybe Garver is the backup catcher here, and like ideally he can handle it. Fine, whatever. But Garver's starting to hit a little bit right now.
Yeah.
Like, how much risk do you want to run? Garver's actually been really good this month. So
yeah.
Like, how big of a risk are you willing to run that you're going to have Garver be the backup catcher? And then we know that Scott has been real hesitant to use his other catcher as a DH because he likes to make sure that if he needs to make a swap.
Yeah.
So if you DFA Zavala, are you just Mitch Garver just going to play 3 times a week as the backup catcher and maybe once a week as the first baseman? Like what's the plan here? Because the plan cannot be to continue to use Cal Raleigh 15 days in a row. You have to give this guy, he's taken a beating back there, and his offense almost certainly is suffering because of it. I get it. Cal's so good, you don't want to take him out of the lineup. He's a catcher. You have to take him out of the lineup. Have to. You cannot be selfish in that way. And I know Cal wants to be back there. This is why you have to manage your team. It is your job to tell a guy, no, you're hurting us. Take a seat for a day. It's going to be okay. You'll get back out there tomorrow. So they refuse to do this with Zavala. They're just wasting another bench spot, which they seem to have no issue doing ever. It's stupid. Like, I don't understand what the plan is here at catcher. Yeah. So in the meantime, Seattle's just going to play with, 25 versus 26 or 24 versus 26, like they've done for a majority of the year anyways. So I don't get what their whole point is with the bench. I don't know what their goal is with the backup catcher. Zavala is a totally fine backup catcher. If George Kirby doesn't want him catching him, fine, whatever. You have to take Cal out of the lineup with another pitcher then. You cannot have Cal Raleigh play 145 games. It is not going to work.
Yeah.
And you can't have a third catcher just in case for the next 100 games on your 26-man roster.
And
you have to make a decision.
And if the whole rotation or the whole pitching staff has told you we don't want Sebi catching us, then DFA him, right? Well, why is he on the roster at this point? Right? Go call up Michael Perez, go call up Papirski, right? Or just find a guy somewhere.
Right. So it just, to me, it's, I don't know what they're doing here. And it is yet another, kind of way that the Mariners have managed their bench in the last 3-4 years where I just look and I go, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, it is very clear to me that the Mariners have literal disdain for the 26th man on their roster or the fourth bench player that they do not want.
We've always said this, that if it was up to them, they would have a 14th pitcher, but the rules mandate that they have to have 13 position players on their roster at least.
Stop handicapping yourself by only having a 3-man bench or a 2-man bench. Stop wasting a roster spot on a guy that you just refuse to use. Not fair to him. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the other players who have to pick up the slack because they have one fewer guy who can help them. Either use Zavala or DFA him and run the risk that, Garver breaks a toe on a foul tip or whatever. And now you lose a guy who's finally starting to heat up a little bit and your backup catcher because you decided to trade Blake Hunt. You decided to get a little reckless with the little bit of catcher depth you had. And now you find yourself stuck. That's on you. You have to make a tough decision here. Figure it out. It's a waste of space. It's a waste of time. The way that they're handling Sebi right now, either start using them or DFA him and run the risk that, Garver's going to get hurt or Cal's going to get hurt. But you know what? Cal's the issue, or like the risk factor of Cal getting hurt goes down if he's not playing every single freaking day.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier is like, at the very least, if you are trying to manage the potential of injuries here by keeping Sebi on the roster, right? Like, oh, well, if Cal goes down in the middle of a game or Garver goes down in the middle of the game, like at least we have Sebi that we can call upon. Why aren't you using him just once a week?
He starts one game a week behind the dish. Garver starts the Kirby start behind the dish. And now you've given Cal Raleigh 2 days off in a week.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
All right. Cal's Bobbleface wants to know, how long or short is Dominic Canzone's leash? It's painfully obvious how much the Mariners need more corner outfield production. Dom has been terrible since coming back from injury. I have the number there. 146, 222, 292. That's a 51 WRC plus since his return on May 15th. The Mariners need to do something about this. Dom, his leash should be pretty short, to answer your question. Should be very short because we're in go time now.
Yeah, it should already be out. If we're being honest. And man, you might be thinking like, well, who's the corner outfielder that's out there that they can call up? I don't know. Harold Ramirez was just DFA'd. Kevin Biggio was just DFA'd. I'd rather have both of them right now than Dominic Canzone. And here's the worrying part about Canzone. I have the numbers right here. Yeah. According to StatCast, he has seen breaking balls 41% of the time. Against breaking balls, he is hitting 148 with a 296 slug, which is with a 42% whiff rate. Can hit breaking ball. He's hitting the fastball okay, but this is still not crushing it. He's only hitting 229 against the fastball with a 514 slug. Those aren't great. That's not a great number against a four-seam fastball. He's also whiffing on that pitch 31% of the time.
Yeah.
So, he's
at this point you're just hoping that he runs into one.
Right. He's a one-trick pony. You have all the options you need on him. It's not the end of the world. You're not writing him off entirely. He's a black hole right now. And you can't counteract that by continuing to run Mitch Haniger into the ground, by continuing to use Dylan Moore every single day. Yep. Those guys aren't those players. Yep. And right now, Dominic Canzone is forcing them to be because he's been so terrible. The Mariners feel like they don't have any other options.
All right, we got a couple more questions from you guys coming up here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date, first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/locked on. That is linkedin.com/LOCKDON for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/locked on and get started. And you're listening to Mailbag Monday here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, you can catch the M's and the White Sox tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. So Max here wants to know, what are the chances Ryan Bliss stays up with the ball club when Jorge Polanco is ready and they just DFA Victor Robles? I think you just see what you have with him and give him the starting job till Polo is back healthy and move Demo back to straight utility. Thoughts? #Go Mariners. First of all, you don't have to DFA Robles. You could DFA Sebi Zavala. But yeah, you could DFA Robles and then Dylan Moore essentially takes on Robles's role. But yeah, I think right now, Ryan Bliss is one of your 13 best position players. And I think that's the case even when Jorge Polanco gets back. I think so far he's impressed. I mean, you know, it's still been a very small sample size, but right now he's helping. So yeah, I think you kind of right now with just the information you have to keep Ryan Bliss on the roster at the moment.
At the moment, sure. But I think there's this idea out there that Ryan Bliss is hitting like 280 with like, a 700.
He actually is in the month of June.
Is he? Oh, wait, in the month of June. When did he make his debut?
He made his debut, I think, like at the it was the Astro series, so like May 24th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, so look, here's the deal with Bliss. All right. Has he been useful? Yeah, actually he has been.
Yeah.
It's a 106 WRC plus right now, mostly buoyed by the 14% walk rate, which we know is not going to continue, although he was a 17% walk rate in AAA. Strikeout numbers have been totally fine. They're within the realm of possibility. He's making some plays defensively. He made a great play yesterday. We've seen the power. We've seen the speed come into play. So he's a fun player. But I think there's just this idea that like Bliss should be the everyday. Like I've seen people say like Bliss should be the everyday second baseman and Polanco should kind of, move around. It's like, no. We're nowhere near that point yet. But yeah, like we don't have a timeline for Polanco right now. So, I mean, that would imply to me that he's at least a couple weeks away. So by the time Polanco gets to a point where you have to make this decision, I think we're going to know one way or the other whether or not, Ryan Bliss is essentially this year's Jose Caballero or not. So, right now he just doesn't have the plate appearances for me to feel good about that one way or the other. I think he should be playing mostly every day. You don't want to overwhelm him, and sometimes you got to pick matchup a little bit, but
Sure.
I do think he should be playing mostly every day. For now at second base, and then kind of Dylan Moore plays for Rojas against the lefty, and then Dylan Moore can play left field, even against the occasion. Like I want to find a way to get Dylan Moore from playing 6 games a week to 3.
Right.
Like that's what I want to do. But yeah, like for now, Ryan Bliss, sure. When Polanco comes back, I don't know. You got to tell me how Ryan Bliss looks. You got to show me his numbers because I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So I like Ryan Bliss a lot. He's a really fun player. He runs the bases extremely aggressively, which is, something this team could use. He obviously has power.
Had a sick defensive play yesterday.
Yep. We know that he has legitimate power even for his size. So he's a fun player, and I think they should give him the next couple of weeks to really see what he can do. But when Polanco comes back, part of this is also going to be, what is Canzone doing? What is Robles doing? Sure. Because you have to remember, Bliss does have all of his options left too.
Sure.
So if you want to keep Robles in the organization, and I think Robles brings something off the bench that you need. Outfield defense, little shaky here in the first couple games, but traditionally he's been a very strong defender. He's got a great arm too, and hey, he hit that double on Friday. So, we'll see what
Yeah.
Robles does. But yeah, they will have options when Polanco comes back. And it is entirely possible that Bliss could still stay on this roster, even with Polanco. It just kind of depends on what everybody's doing in, let's just say on July 1, when Polanco is ready to go. And I don't know when exactly Polanco is going to be ready to go, but that's just,
Yeah.
at this stage, I'd be pretty surprised if he's not going to require about a week-long stint on rehab and all that stuff. So I would guess July 1 at the earliest, but
Yeah.
I don't know. For all I know, they're going to say, hey, Polanco's playing in rehab games tomorrow and he could rejoin the team for the Texas series. Don't know.
So he made his debut on May 27th, to answer your question,
Yeah.
against the Astros.
Took him a while to get the first hit.
It's only been 7 games, but in the month of June, 5 for 18. He's slashing 278, 350, 444. It's a 134 WRC plus.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, so we got a couple questions about trade costs coming up here to wrap up the show. The first one comes from Hunter. What do you think it takes to get Brent Rooker and Austin Adams from the A's? I think at this point, in regards to Rooker, with the club control that he still has, he's been essentially a top 10 hitter in baseball. Are we sure it's not going to cost like Cole Young?
It might.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oakland's tough because sometimes they'll take bulk. So, is it possible that they're like, oh, you want Rooker? Well, give us Locklear and Arroyo and Jeter Martinez and, blah, 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 like 2 more, fringe top 30 guys. Yeah, that is actually possible. Sure. Is it more likely that they look at the market and they go, wow, there's not a ton of like top notch hitters, particularly with club control in this market. So yeah, like Oakland's not out of their mind to ask you about Colt Emerson. I think you'd be out of your mind to say yes, but they might ask, and it's not ridiculous that they do just because.
They're going to, like, let's make no mistake.
Yeah.
They probably start by asking for Brian Wu or Bryce Miller, right? Like every team probably will.
Right.
With the
obviously they have to, if they don't ask, it's malpractice. They should lose their job.
Right. Yeah.
Obviously you say no, and then they go Colt Emerson. You say no. But yeah, it's probably going to cost you one of Young or Ford, and then probably one of like Laz or Locklear, or Farmello. Like it'd be
because
great.
Rooker doesn't even start arbitration until this winter.
Yeah. Like it'd be great if you could just like bulk deal this up and it's like, hey, we'll give you Jeter Martinez and Dom Canzone and Ty Pete and Michael Arroyo.
Yeah.
But Oakland, they're probably gonna be like, I think we can do better elsewhere. So Rooker's tough because he's playing so well, because he was an all-star last year and he's actually improved this year. You're probably, I would be pretty shocked if you can get away without giving up Laz or Young or Ford. I'd be pretty surprised.
This is an example of a player that, even though he's hitting really well right now, overall, you probably don't view him in the same light as like Luis Robert, Isaac Paredes, who we're about to talk about in a second here.
Right.
But
because he doesn't help you with the glove.
But ends up still being kind of in that tier in terms of what it's going to cost because of the club control involved.
Right. And like he doesn't help you with the glove. He doesn't help you on the bases or anything like that. So I like Rooker a lot.
Same.
I would probably rather pay what I think it'll cost for him than I would pay what I think it's going to cost for like Luis Robert. But I think ultimately the price tag on Rooker probably going to be a little too high again, unless I can convince Oakland to take kind of a quality bulk deal, which they do sometimes do. So I'm not saying it's impossible.
Right.
I'm just saying I think I have to give up Cole Young or Harry Ford for Brent Rooker, and I'm not saying no to that. Like I'll listen, but I think I'd be like, yeah, well, can you also send me Austin Adams in or somebody like that? So like if I'm giving up Ford or Young, and then the next best player I'm giving up is like Ty Pete, maybe, then I'll listen to that. I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
Not giving up Emerson, not giving up my young pitching. I'm not giving up Ford and Young or Ford and Laz. I'm not giving up 2 of those 3. So anything short of that, I'm willing to listen on that.
Sure. Bryce then wants to know, what is the cost for Isaac Paredes? Yeah. It might be more expensive than Luis Robert.
Yeah, it's 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Which I think is 1 more year than Robert. It is a guy without an injury history, like Robert has. It's a guy who plays a premium position. Now, it's not an up the middle position, but third base is still a premium position in this league now. He could also play some first base. He's having a great year this year. He had a really good year last year. I legitimately think if you want Paredes, you have to give up Wu or Miller to start. To start. That's not the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
You most certainly, if you can convince them not to take a pitcher, I don't see a way you can make this deal without giving up Colt Emerson, which I'm still open to. Like, I'd consider it.
Yeah, but
right, it'd be a tough pill to swallow.
There's a pretty big but here, and it's probably Emerson and Young, or Emerson and Ford, and then probably more on top of that.
Right. So, like, here's this is just speculation on my end. I don't have any inside info here. Yeah. We heard last year that the Rays really love Ty Pete.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be a good second or third piece in this trade. Just looking at their kind of their future needs and how things are lining up right now, I would guess they're pretty interested in Harry Ford. Particularly if they think he can catch, I think they'd be very interested in Harry Ford.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a perfect fit for them.
Right. So, like, if we're going Ford and Ty Pete, and they like to get arms, so maybe you give them Jeter Martinez and Marcelo Perez, right? If we're talking those four guys, and then maybe like Dom Canzone as a sweetener. If you're talking if you're going Ford, Pete, couple of arms that are probably going to be a little ways away, unfortunately. You just don't have that close enough arms to give them. And then like Canzone, I'll do that.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Heartbeat. Yeah. I don't think they're going to take that. I think they're going to say, give us Colt Emerson and give us either you're giving us Bryce Miller or you're giving us Colt Emerson and Harry Ford. And to me, I'm a no, unless I can get back like a starting pitcher to replace Bryce Miller. And at that point, the whole trade gets too wonky, and I don't see it.
All right, that is going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Dan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.